All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Law, Ordinance, Human Resource, and Compliance Committee. We only have one item on the agenda today. It's Chapter 1759 of the City Ordinances. It's trees, weeds, and tall grass. And I know Mrs. Franson wanted to talk about specifically the weeds, I believe.
Hello.
She's the expert, so I'm going to let her start.
So in addition to being a council member, I'm also an entomologist and just kind of a general biologist. So about a month or so ago, someone messaged me on Facebook saying, "Hey, did you know that milkweed is illegal to have in Norwood?" And I'm like, well, that's news to me because I've had it for many years in my garden. So they sent me the link for the nuisance ordinance, and I looked at it and I thought it might be due for a little refresher. So I spent the last day or two kind of doing a deep dive on different types of nuisance ordinances. So I've got you guys the written thing. This is just the full ordinance, but there's only really two sections that I think need to be changed or altered, and I have some suggestions of how they might be better suited to actually fit the intent of this ordinance. So right now it says that any weeds that are spreading and maturing seeds are about to do so, including but not limited to ragweed, goldenrod, poison ivy, poison oak, bunch of thistles, wild lettuce, wild mustard, wild parsley, milkweed, ironweed, or any other noxious or poisonous weeds, vines, or wild plants. So that basically covers like all of the flowers. Like some of these things are native, some are invasive. I'm not the hugest fan of poison ivy, but it is native. I'm sporting some right now on my face, which is cool. But I think that this is probably like stuff like goldenrod, milkweed, ironweed. Those are native plants. They're not really within the spirit of this ordinance, which I think the intent of this ordinance, in my understanding, is just to reduce the negative effects of unmaintained lawns and gardens on neighboring properties. So it totally makes sense to have like a maximum height that we can let grass grow. We don't want to have a bunch of unmaintained areas that can attract rodents and can increase the tick population, mosquito population, all these other pests. And then, reducing the encroachment of kind of nasty weeds or all of this overgrowth into other people's lawns. Since we are in a city, we're very tightly together. I think that is something that we should strive for as a city. My feeling, though, is that I think we should probably just keep it to something like, I copied this from another city. All of these are just copies from other ordinances, so I know at least someone thought they were legal. So this is under potential changes. You could change the first section to define weeds as follows. Weeds shall include any and all vegetation that is not managed or maintained by the owner or person in control of the property on which all such vegetation is located, which generally exceeds the height restrictions in this chapter, but shall exclude trees, shrubs, and cultivated flowers and gardens. So I think that kind of gets to the intent of the ordinance, where if you have a garden with a bunch of native flowers, if you have like a wooded area where you have natural stuff, that's not really what we're worried about. We're worried about the landlord who lives in Montana who is not maintaining his yard, and he's got all these vining plants that are getting into the neighbors' yards. So you could change the first clause to read that, and then change the second clause, which talks about how high they can be, is like just any grass or weeds in excess of 8 inches in height. So you're not calling out any particular plants. You're not saying you have to be a plant ID specialist. That was kind of my feeling. And I know for the person who has to enforce this, Mr. Shelby, I didn't get a chance to email him, but I figured it'd be good to make sure, check with him, see like how often he has to enforce this ordinance, how he enforces it currently, because I have a feeling like a lot of stuff is probably just based on complaints as opposed to being a proactive thing, and just maybe see what he thinks as well. So, sorry, that was a lot of words, but that's kind of, I spent the last couple hours of my work day looking at different ordinances and going in circles a little bit. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
Ms. Franzen, just to make sure, did you check to see is 8 inches what we typically say for the grass height?
Yes, that is what is currently in the ordinance. So I did not change that. And the other places I looked at is anywhere from 8 to 10. So that seemed like a reasonable height.
I just wanted to make sure it was consistent, because
Yep.
for some reason I thought it was a little different.
I thought it was 12 at some point.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I thought 10, so.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's what it was on the, on the
Well,
website.
as long
So,
as it's
yeah.
consistent is what I would argue.
How would you feel about changing the wording to not managed or maintained? But I would also, having also recently been a victim of someone else's poison ivy growing into my yard, I would love for poisonous plants specifically that are poisonous to the touch to be included as something that we are not allowing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like that could be a risk to little kids
So we could keep the poison ivy
and poison.
oak language. Is that okay? I know it's native, but
No,
Yeah.
again, not a huge poison ivy fan.
That something being native makes it 100%
No,
beneficial.
and that's kind of why I didn't want it to be like a native versus non-native plant thing where, oh, not these non-natives are fine, but because this is native, this is okay. Poison ivy's native. There's native plants that they act invasive. They can be really aggressive. Like, some species of bindweed can be really, really nasty to get rid of. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So yeah, you can say like weeds and poisonous vines, which would include the two things that we have around here that are poisonous to the touch, which would be poison ivy and poison oak.
okay.
Honestly, it's really just poison ivy, but you can include that too.
Okay.
Feel better about that wording.
Totally fine.
I think we should,
Yeah.
seems good.
I also have looked through this ordinance a little bit in preparation for this, and I'm wondering, maybe in another ordinance somewhere, I did not see anything of it here. And maybe this is just like a legal thing that has nothing to do with our city, but it's just like a general law that I'm unaware of. When your neighbors have trees that are growing into your property or are like hyper invasive and are seeding really rapidly, do we have anything about that?
So my understanding of Ohio, well, you're a tree person, Emily. If you want, my unlimited understanding is once it's encroaching into your yard, you can cut the part that's encroaching into your yard.
Yes. So my understanding also is that anything across your property line is yours to cut.
I think that's state law.
That is state law. I assume if you have a good relationship with your neighbor, it's always good to let them know. And you can't. Basically, I was thinking about that, like, because there's these invasive trees like Bradford pear,
Mimosas.
yeah,
My neighbor
mimosa.
has a mimosa tree.
And it would be great to say, oh, we should just ban them, but that's a lot of money to take them down. They're very hard to eradicate.
Yeah.
Same with honeysuckle. I hate honeysuckle. It'd be great to say, oh, if you have honeysuckle, get rid of it. But that is, for a lot of people, cost and time prohibitive. And we, in the city, would be the first to be in the,
Oh, right. Our parks.
we are full of honeysuckle in our
Yeah.
public parks. So, yeah, trying to like balance, this is something that we're trying to do for the health of other people in the city, but also not penalizing people just because they happen to have honeysuckle growing in their yard, which everyone does.
And I think oftentimes people's houses included those things when they bought them. Or
Absolutely.
when they moved in.
Yeah, like people have planted Bradford pears all over.
Yeah.
Right now, as of 2023, it is illegal to sell or plant Bradford pears, but all the ones here are legal. Like, there's no law that says you have to cut them down, and I don't think we can reasonably make a law saying, telling people, hey, you need to spend a couple $1,000s to cut your tree down.
Yeah.
You just can't replace that species.
Correct. So if you want to take it down, if it falls down,
When it falls down.
when it falls down, which is going to be in about 20 years, based on the lifespan of the Bradford pear, then you can replace it with any other tree that's not prohibited. There's state laws about what trees are allowed to be sold and planted now.
Just something I wanted to mention, this is conversations feeling a little deja vu. We did talk about it back in '22. Not this specifically, but adjacent, which I think is important just for us to make sure that we connect them, which is about the cutting of noxious weeds for neighbors. So you can't have anything, I'll just read it. As an owner of land adjacent to a partition fence shall keep all brush, briars, thistles, or other noxious weeds cut in the fence corners in a strip 4 feet wide on the owner's side along the line of the partition fence.
Oh, that's in our
But this section does not affect the planting of vines or trees for use. Now that's specifically brush, briar, thistles,
So yeah,
and noxious weeds,
Poke-
not
pokey
my
plants.
arborvitae
right.
tree.
Yeah.
And I should note, noxious weed has a legal definition according to Ohio. There's a list of noxious weeds. So it's not just a weed you hate. There's like specific ones that are considered noxious
Are
weeds.
poison ivy and poison oak considered noxious weeds?
Shoot, I don't think they are. I think it's more concerned with things that are more like invasive and aggressive as opposed to just poisonous. Yeah, I think it's good to be a good neighbor. It's good to try to keep your poison ivy down. That's another thing where it might be hard to completely get rid of, but it's typically a lot easier to keep down. And no one's happy about having poison ivy in their yard.
No, and
so-
at least in my neighbor's case, they did not, it was hiding behind a bush.
Oh, yeah.
They did not even know it was there until it poked through my fence.
Yeah.
And yeah.
There is an actual list and it is not on there. But
Thank you.
what's interesting is a lot of thistle is, and it took me
A
about
lot of thistles are,
15 years to get the thistle out of my yard, so.
They are pernicious. There's one in my yard that keeps coming back out, even though I rip it out every year. We have it's a fun game we play.
They have tuber roots.
Deep, deep tap roots. Yeah. That's why they're on the list of noxious weeds, is that once you plant them, they're there forever.
Another question. I read this a while ago. And if any of you who have the code up that you can look through it, or if you remember this when you read through it, in this ordinance section, does it state that we have to send an announcement to the newspaper?
That is a great question.
There's somewhere in our ordinances, it's like, hey, during this time of the season, the city health commissioner will do this to the,
Yes. The city health commissioner shall cause a notice to appear in a newspaper of general circulation to be published on or about March 15th of each calendar year, informing the property owners within the city of the requirements contained in section 175902.
so clearly we're violating that technically.
Yeah.
I know other cities,
That would be through the Board of Health.
Yeah, the
Right.
city health
Well,
commissioner.
yeah, I mean,
so it's
technically,
1752.
but
yeah.
this is something I think we could cut that because we don't do anything through the newspaper anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of
We
cities.
do. I mean, we
We,
have to.
we publish the ordinances in the Enquirer.
But a lot of these things are kind of holdovers from when there was more newspapers of general circulation.
sure.
Obviously we still have the Enquirer, but not, I would
I
say,
don't know if everyone in Norwood is.
I doubt everyone in Norwood
Enquirer.
gets it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I didn't look up, but that's something I had heard about and thought about for a different ordinance. There's probably some way to make sure it is publicly accessible. I mean, we have the ordinances online. Some cities, I think, are just saying, like, you can have to put it on a public website or something.
That would make sense to me because, if you think about the way that we used to get news versus today,
Right,
some people don't financially have access to the Enquirer.
right.
Yes, you can go buy, a newspaper for pocket change in theory,
But
if
free
you
at the
want to go
library.
look up ordinances, you're going to get behind a paywall.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's something, probably not just for this ordinance, but for a lot of ordinances. There's probably something in there that's just kind of forgotten or it's not relevant, so it just hasn't been
Right.
done.
And because Norwood doesn't have its own like proprietary newspaper, yeah, it does seem a little outdated.
Yep.
I also would love to address NOMO. May.
Oh, no mo, sorry.
Yes.
I was like, no mo.
I know that there have been some residents who have brought up some concerns about having their grass height reported during NOMO May. What do we feel? I've been trying to think of a solution of ways that we can accommodate that because I think it's important and encouraging flowering plants for pollinators. Do we think that there's some way that we could provide some sort of like yard sign that designates that a yard is participating in NOMO so that the city knows not to cite them or neighbors know not to report?
How long does grass get if one doesn't cut it?
If one,
For a
it
month.
depends on the species, but anywhere from 12 to 15 inches.
So it would be well above.
It would be well above 8 inches, in that case. Yeah, because that's a nationwide thing, there may be some other city that has done something similar. But I think that might be,
I think the only thing I would say is the city passing out yard signs could add up for
Yeah.
cost. I think we all know the price of nice yard signs.
We do.
So that would be my concern.
Yeah, I think
If we had like
differentiating-
1,000 people do it, that's a lot of money.
differentiating of intent, like between
Yeah.
someone is, I'm doing this on purpose versus someone just,
Right.
I'm not doing this because I don't live here and I don't care.
Maybe in theory, we could have people come down and like just have them go to the Board of Health and let them know they're participating. I know that's like an extra trip. But yeah, maybe if we just had an active list every May.
Form online that they could fill out.
Or that, yeah. Might be easier, but you have thoughts, Mrs. Hoover?
I got a lot of thoughts for something new and different. Part of me loves that idea. You know, I'm all about pollinators. I'm transferring our lawn into clover, and but I'm also getting a real kind of. I can picture a lot of folks being really unhappy with that visual, and part of me doesn't disagree with that. I'm also thinking I already have mosquitoes in my backyard and the longer grass. You know. I would want a lot more information. I would definitely want to see, I just pulled up No Mow May, Bee City USA. Like, how do they do that? I think it would be awesome if we could encourage people to, you know, how else can, and maybe this is something we could invite the tree board to do. I don't know if that's too, you know, I don't know if that's in
That would not be a bad idea.
their alley or not, but to encourage folks to do more, you know, have you thought about doing a clover lawn, which is great because it reduces mowing, it's more drought tolerant, it's a pollinator, it helps enrich the soil, and my soil in my backyard is a mess, super clayey. So I'm thinking if we could do something more in that realm, because clover, you could let it go for the month of May and it wouldn't need to be mowed.
Yeah, it's going to stay below 8 inches if it's
Right.
the most flowering plants that no mow May, or honestly, I would argue it's probably no mow April now with how the seasons have changed.
Yeah.
Most of those that it is good to not mow for, like violets, clover, they start blooming more in April now, which is before most people need to mow as much. And those things stay pretty low to the ground. They're not like our turf grass that if you let it go to seed, it can get 12 feet. The highest I've seen my violets get is like 6 inches. So
I should clarify too, I do not mean to address this as a way to like promote it and try to make it a citywide movement. I just am
It's good to
saying
think
a way
about.
to address it so that if these yards are being reported and the people who are maintaining the yards are actively and intentionally not mowing for whatever designated this, which is a national movement, so like it's not, I don't mean this to be like, let's get everyone in Norwood to stop mowing their grass for the month of May, just that if there are people who are intentionally participating, being able to designate those yards that they are not being cited during that time window.
Which I absolutely appreciate, but if my whole street were to do it, that would be both really, really cool and also really messy.
The clover thing you have
so-
to consider too is there's a lot of cost. They'd have to buy seed, they have to take time to seed their grass.
Absolutely.
I got to rip up their grass.
Oh, I'm overseeding.
Also,
And so that's, you know, so we could do something by, you know, we could, and I've reached out to Pam Mullen about the composters because they were in charge of that last fiscal cycle. But it would be really cool if we could do like a, you know, what's not the Gem of the Garden of the Highlands. Isn't there a group?
there's several
gardeners.
gardening groups that are on Facebook. I know, like
I wonder if we could invite them to do some alternatives.
I had one resident suggest just not, because they were growing out their yard for pollinators. They just said like maybe not ticketing anybody until after the 1st of May, but I know that's when you're not supposed to mow, but
you know,
I know a lot of people are doing April now too, because
I mean,
you said.
there is a time period built in of like when you need to address this. So if you would get a letter, you could just say, "Hey, I'm doing this," and maybe
Right.
you can give them an
what's
extended
the-
time. I don't know.
But what's the difference if I'm driving down the street, if it is a absentee landlord who just doesn't care
That's, yeah.
and they aren't pollinators, they're just, you know,
Just grass.
just grass versus, the sweet, old man next door who's got this a gorgeous pollinator garden. Like, for me, that it starts to get kind of, the management of it sounds challenging.
Yeah, so that might be something to put a pin in and figure out before next year, since it's almost the
Yeah.
end of May
That's true.
now.
Maybe we could have like a meeting about it.
Yeah.
Or even just do like some suggestions for the community. Maybe it's not no mow May, but, let your grass get a little bit longer. Maybe go to 6 inches instead of,
Or like wait a little longer for the first mow. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Because in April is when the violets get going. You can kind of wait until they're mostly done and then go, and your grass is still not that. The only other thing I had, and then I'm going to skedaddle. I don't want to act like I'm on this committee. I just want that information. There's kind of there's 2 redundant clauses in here. We might just want to get rid of one. There's 1759.06, which is planting or replacing trees, which says it's unlawful to plant or replace trees of any species on any portion of a dedicated street. And then the next one is, no person shall plant any trees, shrubs, or bushes upon any of the streets of the city, except if the Director of Public Service allows. I think if we just get rid of that first clause, the second clause kind of covers like, hey, you can't do this unless you have permission. There's like one that says you can't do it, and then the second clause is like, actually, you can do it if you have permission.
Is there some legal difference between a dedicated street and a public street?
I emailed the law department about that, and they said that it was the same.
Okay.
Like, it was not in any legal sense different.
So we could probably just say, or, take out
Take out that
those
first
things.
clause.
Okay.
It's just because it's like Department of Redundancy department type of thing for me. Like, this means the same thing. And obviously, we do let people plant in public areas if they have permission.
Yeah.
That's pretty normal.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, any portion of a dedicated street. I know the potholes are bad, but it's like, we're not planting at the street, people. Well, anyway, sorry, that's
Well,
my,
that could mean well, maybe in places like Florida where there's that extra space.
oh yeah, or like a dirt road or something, I would think. But yeah, I was trying to figure out like where this ordinance came from, and the earliest I found this same language was from an ordinance from 1955.
So they probably.
So maybe
just
there was
kept it.
more like gravel or dirt roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dedicated street is any area, including the curbing
Yes.
and turn lanes, to be dedicated as the public right of way.
Yep.
So
So
it's essentially the street plus the curb.
and the easement.
and- yeah.
Yeah. So the same thing that's in the next clause.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my spiel. I read a little paragraph just kind of talking about my understanding and my recommendations, which I already kind of talked through.
Okay.
Just talked a little about noxious weeds, what that actually means. So anyway, that's my feeling. Obviously, y'all can feel however you want.
Okay.
But I'm going to leave this. So you have another copy. Thanks. And if you have any questions about different weeds and invasive things, let me know. Just in general. I always like to talk about it.
Okay.
And my baby has fallen asleep. So
Aw.
you don't even know there's a baby here the whole time.
You did a good job. Mr. Girton, you made the comment about it being published in the newspaper, and I was thinking, is it on our website or our Facebook page? And it isn't. And it seems like that would be an easy enough thing to just have it be on our, that's not,
Thank you,
Uh,
Emily.
is not sufficient, but moving in the right direction. And I know that they're working on putting out a quarterly newsletter that's going to go to every address. And that could be, that should be coming online. He said soonish. It was vague enough, but it was not like in 5 years. It's like,
I mean, if we have that as a policy where that's going to get done, like we're going to have a quarterly mailing, then anytime I think we're editing these things, we could just say this will be published in there. My other is I don't know that it's important.
That's what I'm, like, I don't know if we need to bind the city by saying it has to be publicly published somewhere. I think it's good policy to publish it somewhere, but like clearly, I'm assuming unintentionally, like no one was following this. So
I feel
it
like
might be.
if
Right.
we speak to Mr. Shelby about it and he's
Yeah.
saying that he's citing people based on their grass length, like on a daily basis, then maybe it is worth publishing because maybe there are people who are unaware of the ordinance. But if it's infrequent, then maybe not.
Yeah, I think putting it on the city website would probably be more effective than publishing it in a newspaper.
Right.
So, do we want to just then talk to the law department? I mean, I can double check with them, but just taking out section C about,
Which one's,
In general,
it's the failure to abate, right, is where it's at.
penalty? No.
Here, I can show it right here.
Instruction.
I don't know if she has that part printed.
oh, that's right. It's 1759.02.
And then it's C1.
Can you copy that
Yeah.
and shoot it to me? Oh, you know what I wonder? Here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it was on the Board of Health's Facebook page.
There was a time when I remember getting into a Facebook comment thing with Councilwoman Winterbauer because the city Board of Health just on their Facebook page posted something like, hey, it's time to mow to whatever. And maybe they were doing their own version of this, which
Right.
to me is just as good as what I think this is trying to accomplish. So I don't know. My whole idea is to get rid of more red tape rather than try to die in
Right.
committee rewrite this.
It is. It's on their Facebook page.
Okay.
So since it is, they're the ones listed, they're the ones responsible, so we don't have to do anything. But I think that the city has more reach. So I think we should share this.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think if we're talking like accessibility of information, using social media as our only method of communication for this is depending on an algorithm that we have no say in, pushing it out to the people who follow. I think there are probably a lot of people who follow who don't ever see those posts.
Right. I just, like I said, I don't know that this notice is effective. If, like you said, the word bind.
Right.
I mean, in theory, somebody could hold us to task right now. You know, why isn't, maybe
Not us,
Well,
right?
Board of Health.
No, yeah, that's a fair point.
because they're their own.
Yeah.
yes, but, I mean, based on the fact that they put it on their Facebook page, like, I think in good faith.
Yeah.
I think the spirit of this law is being followed, but I think we could probably just take out the requirement,
Yes.
because I don't think, Mr. Shelby is interested in passing out tickets for fun and without people knowing they need to vote.
It's
So,
not his favorite part of the show.
yeah. So, do we just want to take out the section? Because it just has like all the language of how they would be ticketed and how that process goes. And then it has to be published in the newspaper, which that's basically just all the language of the ordinance that's pertinent to a violation.
I feel like I want more information before
Do you want me to talk to the law department or?
I just want to
like
see
what?
how frequently they're issuing.
I know a couple tickets were issued this month.
Because
He
I
does a
feel if
lot.
it's really pervasive, then maybe we do need to be making some kind of announcement. But
Do you-
like, from here on out, you do need to be mowing your grass. We are starting to issue tickets.
I do think it's common knowledge in Norwood that if your grass is high, you get a ticket. And that you don't even get a ticket.
You don't get it, yeah.
You get a warning that says if you don't abate this or remediate this. But I think it's driven by complaints.
Oh, yes.
I don't know that right now we've got enough time. I haven't seen our people doing the the fundraising. But it does seem like everybody who's a homeowner knows, and I've seen grass get like knee high before people have gotten the health department involved on it. So like, I'm all for getting rid of the weed thing here, but I think people get cited for grass probably a couple times a week in Norwood. But it would be interesting to check with Mr. Shelby about it.
Who do you
My
want to?
concern is just, is making it known going to benefit people, going to decrease the amount of citations that we're giving, going to give people the reminder they need, like, oh, it's time to start mowing the grass again? Are we going to take away something that is serving us?
Well, it's not happening now.
But if it were happening, do we think that it would,
If they were publishing it in a newspaper?
maybe not necessarily in a newspaper, but in a newsletter on our,
My only concern is we have an administration now who's interested in having the newsletter, but in the future, like that's not like a permanent fixture, right? That's my concern, is that you put it and bind the city to do it, and then it's not something that happens forever.
I think the newspaper is completely unnecessary because we don't have a newspaper.
Right.
But I feel like it would be a good call for us to continue to make an annual
I
announcement.
think it would be like general, like good practice. I definitely
Yeah.
think we should do it. I just don't know if we should, because that's the thing, like we say, okay, post it on social media, and I don't know if AI takes over in 5 years and all, I don't know. I feel like it's binding us to, because a newspaper at the time, right, like that didn't seem like it would be a difficult thing, but of course now we kind of
No,
know
there's a paywall.
it's outdated. Paywalls.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about not having it.
Yeah.
I would be fine with making the law go away. I just would like us to keep up the practice of
I think it, yeah.
putting an annual reminder out.
And I think that might just be as simple as someone just making sure it goes on the city Facebook page. And I know right now, Norcom working on having the scheduled postings on the city Facebook page?
Not yet.
Not
We
yet.
still just have Jerry.
Oh.
And so, yeah.
Could we?
But that's planned at some point.
It's a hope. We still don't
Yeah.
even have the stuff back from the DEI volunteer. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's on hold.
But
I think we need to utilize our emails more. Not our, but the city's
Cities.
email. I've been talking, a couple of the communities do constant contact, constant comment, constant contact, contact.
Constant comment is a T.
Thank you. I was like, but it sounds so right.
It is. It's delicious.
And so City of Silverton uses it, lots of places use it. There's a fee associated with it. Right now, I'm not sure what the benefit of that versus if we could just have Jerry once a week take some of the flyers that we have, like right now, the rec, the pool's opening. We've got, I don't know if the police thing tomorrow is open to the public. Okay. But like if there's like community events, like Music on
senior
Mills, the senior center reopening, that they could put those in an email and every Friday shoot those out. That's one of my dreams I'm working on.
so maybe we could just take out this newspaper bit since it's clearly not going
Yeah.
to be enforceable, and then if we come up with a solution, we could try to make it policy.
Well, I would find out if the Board of Health is doing it.
Okay.
Because the Board of Health, it could be one of those things like the ordinances that is simply
Like
one
they
of
just
those
do it.
things. I'm not a property owner, but it could be that property owners, that's something that they know that they have to look at. You know what I mean?
You are a property.
Like they might be doing it, yeah. I just
No,
don't
no,
know.
no.
if
I'm a
it's-
I mean like an absentee property
Oh,
owner.
sure.
Well,
Like
you're
if you
gonna
were, I
fix
don't think
an
it'd be-
absentee property owner. They're not going to be ever looking
Right.
anyways if they're
I don't
absentee.
know if they'll be looking at
Not
that.
absentee, I mean absent. They not out of town landlord. I care a lot about my property, but I don't live here. That person.
If
You think
I
they're
don't
looking at
know.
it? Okay.
I just know there are people who read the newspaper to find all the ordinances.
Right.
And maybe that's in that same area.
Yep.
I mean, I don't do that. That sounds weird to me, but
could we just make a line that says this shall be publicly posted annually?
I mean, We could do that, but I mean, that would
Because-
just be a fly, that might even be, I mean, we can, like, where would you want to put, like, at the city buildings?
Well, I mean, I'm,
But it's the Board of Health.
Right.
I'm just saying, I don't think we should legislate the Board of Health's
Well, that's.
communication
but
that's what
it's
this
all
is.
over the
of their communication.
It's all over the, there's stuff like in here multiple times. I'd have to go
Right.
look, but we've been doing that through the history.
Okay, I'm just saying in terms of, since the Board of Health manages it, I wouldn't want to go in and change what they're currently doing if they have a very good reason for having done it that way.
We can ask.
Because I don't know how they do their process.
Yeah, we can double check with them. I just, on its face, it seemed like
Yeah,
yeah. We can double check.
What I was saying earlier is if we just put this shall be publicly posted, then it covers, it just has to be posted somewhere. And so when we have a current mayor or a mayor like our current mayor who is focused on communication, they could put it up on a newsletter on the social media site. And I understand this is the city Board of Health. But I'm just trying to think of other ways to clean up this kind of language that binds us loosely so that we can put it on a social media post, we could put on a flyer on a,
and it's covered.
yeah.
Makes sense.
I don't know if that would count as public. I'm just thinking of like how, this is my law, right?
No, that's
I know usually like public posting means you have to physically post it somewhere. I don't know if a social media post counts. Because someone would have to have the Facebook, huh?
1 meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, Mr. Morris said that the Norwood get together,
Norwood together.
no, not the Norwood community conversation
Yeah.
about the park, that was covered because it was posted on Facebook and it was a public meeting. And he said because it was posted on Facebook.
I think,
it
but they also
also-
put the paper too.
Yeah. I also had a,
I'll double check with him, but I just know the law's antiquated, so I don't know. So it's not at all like a common sense dig. I'm just like like if you want to serve someone by posting in a lawsuit, that means you have to like post it usually in a
stamp
clerk
on
of
it.
court's office or something like that.
Ask Ruby
So
to
like
do
that's where I'm at. I didn't even go to Facebook because I was like, where would they post it physically?
scan for where it says facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I could speak to the Board of Health and see how they feel about this as well, or ask Mr. Shelby or someone to come to the next meeting if they want to, and we can figure that out. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question for maybe new business.
Okay. Like for the next meeting, something to add?
Well, maybe.
Okay.
It's on this topic.
Okay.
Have you all ever gotten a letter from the building department or the Board of Health? They're not friendly at all. I mean, somebody calls and complains and says, you've got too much, your trash cans are visible from the street. They give you a piece of paper in the mail that says, you are hereby in violation. If you don't do this within 30 days, we're going to come after you. I would like to find a way to force whoever's writing those letters to be polite.
That might be the law department. I'm gonna guess they put the legalese in there because it sounds like the root part is the mandatory language. It might be. It might be.
You're opening up a whole door that I don't want to get to right now.
Okay. You can. Do you want
I
to?
don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think whoever wants
Do we
to.
want
gets
to put it
Right,
in
those.
committee?
We can.
That's my question. Is there a way for this committee to
I don't know if
create
we-
a policy about that?
I believe, no, wait, no, no to you. Do we have to have it start in, or we can just open it in here, right? Just,
It's not on the agenda, but
right, but
today.
can't we just put it on the agenda for next
Yeah,
time?
yeah,
or
we
does
can
it
do
have-
that if
It
you
doesn't
want.
have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
come through council.
I can do the research.
no. It doesn't have to come through council. We can put it on the agenda for next time.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that what you're, I don't
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, so I can just put it on the
I
agenda.
can go to Mr. Moore and ask.
Yeah, do you want to ask
So,
around to the
yeah.
departments? Because I don't know who writes them, honestly.
I know.
Okay.
It's,
And could we also put lights on the, because that's in this
You wanna
committee,
put it
right?
back on? Yeah.
Yes, I have info I want to update.
Perfect. Okay, so let me,
I think they've toned down their,
we can save it for next time.
right.
Just so we're not off too far off the agenda. Okay, so next meeting we'll do we just want to say lighting? We'll just say lighting. Mm-hmm. Keep it very broad. And then, what do we want to call?
Warning, violation warning letters.
Okay. Do you have specific departments you want to put on here, or just the letters in
The building
general?
department and the health department.
Okay. And then we will put this ordinance back on. Do we want, so I guess my question is, do we want to wait until we speak to the health department to ask the law department to do any actual amendments to the ordinance?
I would, yes, please.
I assumed we didn't want to do piecemeal, but if anyone was in a hurry to get milkweed approved, I would have also been happy to do that.
It's late in the season to plant it anyway.
Well, if they already have it, I don't want them to
They
get in
already
trouble.
have it, I don't think anyone is actively enforcing.
I went to one of Emily's,
She gave a speech about
Butterflies.
monarchs.
oh,
Butterflies.
she did a monarch thing and said we should plant milkweed in our yard. So Audrey and I did it. And what I do know from that little thing is it only lasts a year before the butterflies will be attracted. Like, not only lasts. You have
It takes a year.
It's like strawberries. Yeah,
Nice.
they take a year to get seasoned.
Okay, so I will put 1759 back on the order as well.
because of Emily.
For the pollinators, butterflies.
Okay. All right, so next time we'll do lighting, the violation and warning letters, and we'll put the chapter 1759 back on. Do we want to? But Mr. Girton, do you want time to speak to the departments, or?
Yes, I will get an official comment to
Est-
bring back.
Okay. How long do we? I'm assuming at least. Well, that's June 4th. We have committee of the whole that night, so.
Do you want to do it before? No, you couldn't.
We could, if we want to do it really soon, I mean, I'm available like next Thursday, if we want to try to get it on to the next, or is that too soon for you?
I do not have Thursday nights.
Okay.
available.
Are Tuesdays best for you, Sam?
Mondays, Tuesdays are my only evenings that I always have available.
Do we want to do Monday, June 3rd? That's almost 2 weeks, that's 13 days. Is that enough time for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, any deadline is, I'll find a way to meet it.
I will not give you a difficult deadline, Joe, if you need longer.
No,
Okay.
like if you give me a 4 or 5 week deadline, I will wait for 3 or 4 weeks to get onto that.
Yeah, that's relatable. Okay.
Let me double check my work schedule.
okay.
Tell me that week. Let me double check it really quickly. June is just
You're very
a
busy.
month for my schedule. It's very hard to be gay in June. Such a burden.
There is a dangerous situation at NKU's arena right now.
Did Citizen tell you?
No, I get Norse alerts on faculty there.
We're talking about the 3rd.
Yes. I'm sure you'll still be recovering from the stress of the Pride Market.
I don't think it
with
will be
it.
stressful at all. I think it will be enjoyable from start to finish.
You heard it here first, folks.
It's going to be phenomenal.
I am available.
You are? Okay. Do we want to do 6:30 again? Does that work for everybody? Or would you prefer earlier?
I would love a little earlier if that's doable.
I
If
think we
anyone's
said
gonna
6
be-
this time, and then I put it wrong in my calendar.
Oh, if anyone is going to be stressed out by it being earlier, we can do it.
Earlier is good for me.
I'm fine with 6. Okay.
Sweet. 6.
I will actually double check this time, and I will know 6 is correct. I'll put 6. Yes, 6.
Cool beans.
All right, so June 3rd, and I will make sure the agenda is emailed on a business day before that. Okay,
Perfection.
everybody ready to adjourn? Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.